Hey there, I'm Sarah Zarella, a portrait and wedding photographer and your host for Wedding Secrets Unveiled. This is a podcast where we cut through the complexity of wedding planning, leaving you with everything you need to know directly from the industry experts. If you want to simplify your wedding planning while having fun, of course, you came to the right place. Join me while I guide you through your planning, starting from your engagement to your big day where you say, I do. After photographing for the past 19 years, I am sharing with you tips and tricks to cut through the excess noise because I believe from the moment you said yes, your planning experience should be a magical time in your life. Here you will find episodes that are fun, stress-free, and straight to the point with a fresh, honest take on the reality of what you really need to know about planning your perfect day. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Wedding Secrets Unveiled podcast, friends. So today I have Amanda Lankarge. She just got married, and she actually was just like you all. She was a listener and fan of the podcast. So thank you so much for everybody who listens. And if you do write in, I listen and I read all of your emails. She's going to discuss with you today how to maneuver rain on your wedding day if it happens. I get it. It's not ideal. But if you are planning a wedding, you have to think about inclement weather. We're going to be sharing with you some tips and tricks about how to navigate through the not so lovely thought and reality of what happens if it rains on your wedding day. All right. Well, welcome, Amanda.
Thank you so much for having me today, Sarah. I'm so excited to be here today and have the opportunity to share about this topic that I'm very passionate about now.
I know. I'm very excited. So what we need to do is we need to let the listeners know who you are and how are you sitting in front of me today? Because this is a great story.
Yeah, so I actually was a 2022 bride in Newport, Rhode Island, and my husband and I got married this past fall in October. And the past 9 months prior to that, I was indulged in so much wedding planning, just so excited, planning every detail of the day. And of course, what's the one detail that you cannot control is Mother Nature. And Mother Nature did bring rain on my wedding day. And was it expected? No. And was it a little disappointing at first? Absolutely. I mean, it's not what I envisioned when I pictured my coastal wedding for years and years. But it's, it's what you make of it. And you can't control it, but you can control how you handle it. So I'm just really excited to be here today to share some tips that I followed to prepare for it. And I mean, you think rain is going to be a damper, but there's something so magical about it. And my wedding was a fairy tale. I worried for so long, like, oh my gosh, like, is this going to ruin the day? It didn't whatsoever. We had our perfect fairy tale wedding. So I'm hoping that couples that are listening in today can kind of have their mind at ease as I share my story, share some perspective, and hopefully share some tips that are helpful in case you have a wedding that is mainly outdoors and rain happens on your day.
I love it. So for the listeners, I just found this out. I got a beautiful email from Amanda. We never actually met.
No.
And you just went on our podcast page and put an inquiry in. And I remember where I was. I was reading it. I'm like, oh, a listener. And then I was reading it because I get emails from you all. But what was cool, Amanda, is you were asking to be on the show. And I love it. You came from a listener to a bride, and now you're going to be like an informative, like, tip person over here. But I loved it, though, Amanda, because you reached out to us, you asked to be on the show, and I absolutely loved your topic because, honestly, it is something, sometimes, like, when you're in the field you take for granted. It's something that every single wedding that we go out with, that we have these conversations with people, but I never even thought about having a show about it, and it's so important. And that is obviously what happens if it rains on your wedding day.
No, absolutely. And I was a listener of this podcast throughout my entire wedding planning process, and such a variety of topics, so helpful for me, and when the day got here, I mean, the week up when I realized rain was inevitable, I was looking for a podcast or a blog or just some sort of information to kind of guide me as to how you handle having rain on your wedding day. And I, after the wedding, said to my husband, I was like, I have so much I want to share. Like, I Sarah was so helpful with all the podcasts I listened to. Like, I'm going to take a shot. I'm going to ask her if I can be on and share about this. And I'm excited to share from the bride lens today. But, Sarah, I feel like you have so much, too, from the vendor lens that you can share. I'm sure you've done hundreds of rainy day weddings.
Yeah, it actually rained on my wedding day.
Did it really?
Yes. So
oh, my gosh. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, no. So it was unexpected. Just like me, I got married in August, Labor Day weekend, and just like typical New England, and mine was an outdoor tented wedding.
Okay.
On like land. That's it. Like just like you were on the water. So
Right.
people who are not from here, where Amanda got married, is a venue called Regatta Place. Is located in Newport, and it's literally on a dock. Like literally on a dock. Like so. In a tent where your reception is, and you're getting married on a dock. So obviously rain affects you just like it affected my day.
Absolutely.
But, you just take it in strides.
You do.
And somebody along the way said it's good luck if it rains on your wedding day. I think that person is just trying to make themselves feel better that it rained on their
Oh my gosh. You have no idea how many people said that to me the week of, But then like after the fact, I was like, wow, like every Nicholas Sparks movie has a kiss in the rain in the movie. Like maybe there is something really magical and romantic about it. And there really was. It added some character and just this whimsical factor to the day, and I'm excited to share today. I'm excited to dive into this.
Well, let's dive in and share.
Okay.
So, with that said, let's kick it right off.
Okay.
Tell me a little bit about, what you feel and what you want to our listeners to know about some, advice and some critical questions that they can be asking to help them plan for this.
Yeah, so my husband and I got engaged in December of 2021, and we instantly got into the wedding planning. And we're from Aquidneck Island, so we knew that Newport was our spot to get married. And we looked at like 7 or 8 different venues, and all of them had a different vibe about them. And I think what really struck us about Regatta Place is that it was fully coastal. It's a venue where there's panoramic water views all around you. And the boat dock where you do get married is covered, which is really nice in the sense of if it rains or shines, you're covered. And I loved that about it. But there's still, when we got there, my husband and I loved it. I mean, we chose Regatta Place, but I feel like it chose us. And I think a critical question that I asked our sales director that day, they take you around for a tour, and it's a beautiful sunny day, and they show you a PowerPoint presentation with photos from weddings, and you're seeing these beautiful golden hour sunset photos. But in the back of my mind, I kept saying, but what if it rains? What does it look like here if it rains? So before even signing our contract at our venue, I asked my sales director, could you send me some photo gallery examples and videography examples of a wedding done here on a rainy day? And then, fast forward 9 months. Did I ever think it was actually going to rain on my day? No. But I'm so glad I asked that, because right away she emailed me samples, and I got to see like 3 or 4 different galleries where couples handled the rain all in different ways. And it was kind of cool for me to get different perspectives. Like some brides had the clear umbrellas and they just went with it and really owned it. I could tell that, other brides made sure that they had an alternative indoor location for their photos. So it was just cool for me to see the different feels of how brides handled the day. And I think that was so critical for me, because my husband and I were able to really look at videography examples and photography examples to really understand, what is it going to feel like? What's it going to sound like? What's it going to look like if it does rain on that day? You can ask those questions and they'll explain it to you, but it's another thing to see it and visualize it and make sure that you love the rainy day plan just as much as you love the sunny day plan.
I think that's a really great point that, obviously, you were clearly a planner in your mind, because for you to even think that way prior is so advanced of sometimes how people are even thinking. So for our listeners, that's a great suggestion. It is definitely visually see the pictures at your venue of not the most ideal environments.
Right.
So many times, like you said, people show the best of the best, and I guess in theory, by definition, rain wouldn't be on definition the best of the best.
No,
right?
I don't think people sit there and say, I hope it rains on my wedding day. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. If you do, great. That's awesome. But, exactly. So just to have that visualization that my husband and I both loved. We absolutely loved the plan for rain or shine. It just put our mind at ease for whatever Mother Nature brought that day.
So when you were looking at those photos that your venue was providing you, what are some tips that you learned or takeaways from how those couples planned for that or for that type of day would rain? And what did you do? What was your takeaway from those photos, from what you learned?
I think something that was really critical was I loved the clear bubble umbrellas. And I made sure that I got them far in advance. So, sometimes you might wait till the week of and try to get them quickly, but you can't always guarantee that they're going to get here quickly. And I knew that if it rained, and I saw the photos from the gallery examples, they're having at least a dozen of those umbrellas was really important because each bridal party member could have one. We could have them there for bathroom trips in case guests needed them to go from the tent to the bathroom and having them there. So I knew that I needed to factor in a bit of my budget just to make sure I had those clear umbrellas. And then if you don't use them, you can always return them. It's not like it's money lost. So that was definitely a takeaway for me, was making sure that we had those clear umbrellas and that we were prepared. And also just really owning it. If it's going to rain, you can't change it. So just embrace it. And I think from there, after seeing gallery examples and then getting to the week of my wedding and knowing that was actually going to happen, I was on Pinterest looking up examples of, couple photos on a rainy day. And I used a lot of that inspiration to bring to life. And was it the vision I initially planned for? No. But we just owned it and we embraced it. So I think just, and also asking yourself too, at your venue, if it rains, where would you want to do your photos? And if it's not anywhere at the venue, making sure that you have a backup location prepared.
Well, and that's actually where I was going to, you beat me to it. Wow, you're really prepared over there. I was going to say is that, because you went through it all, obviously. Yeah. So basically for our listeners, what Amanda just said to you is stellar advice as far as items that you can get to prepare you for the rain. The other thing I was actually going to say was there's also something else that you can do, and that is clearly go to your resources, go to your venue, go to your photographer or videographer, ask them what they suggest for your location. I know for myself, there is different locations where I know of places that we could actually do pictures and not even have you outside and it looks like outside. Mm-hmm. So the reason why I say that is, for example, Dan and I just photographed a wedding down the road from where you got married. It's another location on Goat Island, right down the road in Newport, but this can go for anybody wherever you're listening. This particular venue does not really have any locations outdoors. So a lot of times venues will have like a covered overpass or a covered porch, or again, talk to your photographer, talk to your venue. But this particular location didn't. However, what it did have was large doors full of glass, right? Mm-hmm. So as a photographer, I put them in front of those doors, and therefore, it made them look like they were standing outside, and so you could still see the water, but they were inside.
I love that.
Not every venue has that, though. Like, obviously, where you got married does not. Right. But what I'm saying is, talk to if you know that weather is coming down the pipeline, talk to the people that are there to service you. They might have some suggestions. And sometimes, I guess, don't go to panic zone, like an umbrella. Or like I said, there's some venues that have overpasses. Right. And you could just put the couple right underneath there. Mm-hmm. There's some beautiful venues that have these beautiful archways where you pull up for the car. Mm-hmm. You can put them there. Anyway, use the resources that's also around. Obviously, umbrellas are too.
Yeah.
A thing you need. And honestly, the other thing is sometimes throughout the day, it's I can count probably on one hand that we had a complete washout in 21 years. So there is times throughout the day that it stops, or it just is like a drizzle. And so you can just kind of run out there for quick shots for that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, on our day, it wasn't a complete washout. We were able to get through our photos and our ceremony with no rain. And what was funny, though, when we did our first look, and that brings me to my next tip. I mean, I think when you are battling Mother Nature, there are some things you need to be flexible with your timeline or different locations for things. But also, it's important to stay true to yourself, too, about what are your non-negotiables and how do you balance the two. So, for example, we moved our first look location on the day of our wedding due to impending weather. And did it rain during our first look? No. But I knew that our first look location was not right at our wedding venue. It required golf carting over to a different spot. And I knew we were battling the timeline of Mother Nature. So we were flexible. We moved our first look spot, which was right at our venue. And now we look back now and we're like, I'm so glad we did do our first look at our venue because it's our venue. It's where we got married. We did it right on the dock where our wedding was, and there was something so special about that. So we were flexible with that. But I remember a couple days before my wedding, when we knew that rain was inevitable, my photographer was my right hand. And, she called me and she said, I've already called like 7 or 8 places. I'm going to have backups in case we need to go indoors. And we had our detail meeting, and she provided me with so many options. So just know that your vendors are professionals for a reason. They will offer options. They will work with you. They'll make sure that you get the photos and the non-negotiable pieces that you really want. But she shared a lot of different locations with me that we could go to as a backup. And most of them were like a library or a grand staircase. And yes, that's absolutely beautiful. And if you're flexible enough for that, that's great. For me, my non-negotiable was having that water backdrop. So we were really lucky that we were able to do our photos right on our boat dock. And the way the covering was with our flower arbor right in the front of the dock, we still had the panoramic water all around us, but we were covered on the dock. So it worked out really well, and we were able to still stay true to what we wanted while also being flexible with the day. And I think it's important to balance the two if weather is going to impact your day.
I think it's really important, too, if you are having, obviously, a wedding where you're not completely all inside. Like, obviously, for the people who are getting married, that everything's inside. You don't have to, and
Absolutely.
Don't have to even worry about this.
Right.
Kudos to you.
Absolutely.
But majority of people have some type of element, either it be a scenic view or outside wedding or, indoor wedding, but it's a tent. I mean, whatever it is, I think you're right. It's really important you have to be realistic and start thinking about this ahead of time. So the key was you already thought about this ahead of time. You've already, granted, you didn't want it to become a reality, but you already did your research. So do some research, get some pictures, and then prepare. But then, like you said, now when it came your reality, you had those non-negotiables and you started to execute your plan B. Right. And you worked with lean into your photographer. I was going to say, lean into that photographer, tell them what your non-negotiables are. And you already said it. You basically said what I was saying. Like, you found an awning. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. There's things that we as professionals have thought about that you probably don't even know. Right. So it's not a lost cause. Right. But I think, though, there is something that's really important, and that is you kind of have to get a grip beforehand. The reality. You gotta deal with those emotions before your wedding day. So talk us through that a little bit.
You do.
What you did.
No, absolutely. So for our wedding, we were getting married at the end of October. And, in my mind, here in New England, it was a pretty dry summer. June, July, and August were probably some of the driest months that we'd had in a while. So in my head, I was like, oh no, does this mean a rainy October? Kind of was in my head, but just kept saying, nope, whatever's going to come is going to come. So, of course, I was that bride that was looking up Farmer's Almanac and checking the weather months in advance, looking at the precipitation percentages and, really trying to prepare. But in reality, you can't really trust the weather until you're right around that 10-day mark. Then you can start to trust it 10 to 7 day with some validity. And initially, our day was being forecasted as sunny and 70 degrees. And we got married on a Sunday afternoon. Late October wedding. We wanted to utilize sunlight and daylight, and we also were encouraging our guests to make a weekend out of it. So on that Saturday, we did a welcome reception. We had a rehearsal sale and rehearsal, and we did our dinner and welcome drinks. And that, too, is being forecasted as a 70-degree sunny day. So, of course, all our family and our guests are getting so excited. It looks like this perfect end of October wedding weekend weather. And that forecast stayed true. I mean, that whole week, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, even Wednesday now before the wedding, it was still showing that sunny degree forecast. And I mean, no pun intended, but I got weather off my radar. I wasn't even thinking about it anymore because I was like, all right, it's not going to rain. Like, it's looking good. Moving on. It's the week of the wedding. I have other things to think about. And I kind of just got it off my mind. And I'll never forget it. That night I came home and I picked up my phone and refreshed the weather app, and all of a sudden it was showing a 70% chance of rain on Sunday. And I was like, what? Like, where is this coming from? And I saw that there was a system coming up the coast that they weren't really sure how fast it was going to move. Was it going to be a Sunday more into Monday? Was it going to come up quickly and move into Sunday? Just a lot of uncertainty. And I think what was so disappointing was that it was once forecasted to be 70 degrees and sunny. And all of a sudden, we're a couple days before the wedding now, and that changed so drastically. That was a lot for me. I had to process that, as any couple needs to, you know. And my husband, of course, was my rock, telling me it doesn't change the outcome of the day. We're going to get married that day. That doesn't change, you know. And of course, in the grand scheme, he was right. But me being that bride that has dreamt of my wedding for years, it took me a little bit longer to cope and process. And I think that processing looks different for everyone. I mean, for me, that was having a glass of wine that night and just needing to be alone and come up with a new vision in my head and really just wrap my mind around the fact that it's going to rain on your wedding day. And you can't change it, and you got to accept it. And that's the biggest piece of advice I have for couples. You don't want the disappointment to linger into your wedding weekend because you want to make sure that you're fully present and able to make those memories. Because if you let it damper in and it causes you stress and anxiety on the day of, you're going to be so disappointed when you look back later because it doesn't change the magic of the day. Sure, I didn't know that at the time, but the best thing I did was process my emotion beforehand because by the wedding weekend, I wasn't even thinking about weather anymore. At that point, I had already come up with a plan, processed it, and accepted it. And it was the morning of my wedding, and we had been doing hair and makeup for hours and having champagne and laughing, and someone finally said, oh, has anyone checked the forecast? Do we know when the rain's starting? And I looked and I was like, oh, right, yeah, I have no idea. Like, it was totally out of my mind. And that's because I took the time to process it days in advance.
And I think that's really, really important that, I mean, obviously, like you said, if for anybody's listening, taking the time and processing it beforehand is the best way because you can't do anything about the rain. But what you can do is don't let it affect other aspects. Mm-hmm. So you cannot take away, I'm telling you as a photographer who deals with the visuals, I can see it when something's bothering something on someone's facial expressions.
Of course.
So just kind of dealing with that beforehand. But what we're going to do, Amanda, is before we're going to take a little break, and then when we get back, we're going to kind of dive into it. I want to share a little story about my own wedding day because we're two brides sitting here that rain on their day.
Oh, I can't wait to hear.
So we'll take a short, quick break. I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you like what you're hearing, I encourage you to check out our website at sarahzarella.com. And don't forget, you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. And I would so appreciate if you left a fabulous review on Apple Podcasts. Even better, share it with a friend. It's a great way to show your support. And now, let's get back to the episode. Well, welcome back, podcast friends. So before the break, we were talking with Amanda, who, it rained on her wedding day. So what they say, good luck if it rains on your wedding day. But with that said, it also rained on my wedding day. So Amanda, you went over a little bit about kind of how you got through that. Mm-hmm. And I would just love to share with the listeners what happened with myself.
Oh, I'd love to hear.
Yes. Well, mine's a little different. Being in the industry, mm-hmm. I checked out as far as like pre-planning everything weeks before my wedding because, you know, I could go crazy about. I mean, you talk about your wedding day, and like it raining. Imagine being a vendor and seeing all these little things that can go wrong, and knowing that they can go wrong. There's probably a gazillion things that happened on your wedding day that went wrong that you have no clue about because you have professionals keeping you away from that.
Exactly, right.
But for me, it's like there was a point when I just had to be like, it's planned. Okay, I'm going to get married. So I mean, ultimately, for those listeners. You got to look at the vision of like what your husband said. You're going to get married. That's it. Yeah. And honestly, for your guest, it's going to be okay. They really don't care about the weather like you do because you have this visual. You know, we did a wedding back in November, and it literally was raining, like literally raining outside as they're getting married, and. The guests, they just had their umbrellas. They were sitting underneath standing up underneath the trees. But ultimately, the ceremony was only 10 minutes, and there was really no other option. There just wasn't at this particular place to go inside other than completely flipping her room for ceremony and then flipping it again into the reception. But everything, cocktail hour, and everything was in the same spot. So she had no option. So what I'm trying to say is worst case, you literally get married in the rain, and that's okay. And you know what? Her pictures are great. I love them. They're kind of, for me, like they're unique portfolio because we have pictures of them getting married in the rain, and it's kind of romantic, like the Notebook, like you're just kind of doing your first kiss in the rain, right?
And overcast. I mean, there's no shadows. The lighting's so beautiful. Like rainy days can make for some of the most beautiful wedding photos.
And that's honestly not a wise tale. It really, people are not blowing smoke. Like it literally is. Overcast days are better for photography. You do not. Squint. It's even light. But with that said, what happened on my day is I checked out. I didn't even know it was going to rain. Like, I didn't even know. So the fact that it rained, I'm like, okay. I mean, I not only did it rain on my wedding day, it didn't. I got married outside. It was bright, beautiful, hot day. And it was a beautiful day. And then in came during cocktail hour the clouds. And by the time we got into the reception tent, it was massively downpouring. It was like a typical like August, that rain that comes in August, like mass downpouring. I was walking to we had these beautiful trailers that are outside our tent that, you go to the bathroom. I was walking to there and I fell face first, literally on the ground, face first, like in the mud. And yes.
No.
Yes. And so I was with a very dear friend of mine who was a podcast guest. She was my editor at the time. And we actually did a podcast about editing. You can check out that episode, Lauren Bevilacqua. But anyway, she was with me. And I'll never forget it. There must have been like one of the catering kitchen staff outside smoking a cigarette. He looked at me midway smoking his cigarette, bride's on the ground, friends there. She had a little bit too much to drink, so she thinks it's funny. I'm on the ground. Guy looks at me, throws his cigarette out. He's like, I'm not finishing this. Like, you could tell. He was like, bride's on the ground. I don't want anything to do with this. Like, peace out. Throws his cigarette out and probably goes back into work. But with that said, the rest of my pictures for the entire night had mud on my dress.
Oh, my gosh. You own it.
I own it.
It's a memory you'll have forever.
It happened. And, I couldn't get it out. It's still there on my dress. I preserved my dress. I don't know why. I don't know if my girls are. I don't know why. Why do we preserve dresses? That's a whole other topic. But the mud is sitting on my dress. So one day, I don't know. I'm just going to take it out, and there's the mud.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to tell you guys is I'm going to tell you a little tip. All right. Speaking of dress, whether it rains or not, your dress is going to get dirty. Reality.
Yep.
Okay. Embrace it, because no one is looking at. I mean, I literally had mud on my dress, like mud. I mean, I don't think anybody's like, remember your wedding day when you had mud on your dress? Like, no one's looking at me that way.
Of course.
So what I'm trying to say is, please, for anybody who's getting married, embrace the fact that once you put that dress on, you're wearing it that day.
Right.
And so whatever happens. And if it gets dirty, it gets dirty.
Right.
Because you're wearing it that day. No one's looking at your dress being like, oh, she has a little speck on her dress. So if it rains on your
tip.
Yes, right? If it rains on your wedding day, it's going to get dirty. If it doesn't rain on your wedding day, it's going to get dirty.
Exactly. I was just going to say that. Like, you could walk through mud on a sunny day. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, your dress is going to get dirty. And to be honest, my dress did not get that dirty. Like a tiny bit on the train, but I was really lucky. Like it was not bad. And to be honest, the wet docks added this shiny look to the photos that were just timeless, and it added so much. So just embrace it with your dress if it does get dirty or wet. And another thing, just to kind of piggyback off that, hair and makeup. I think that's something that brides get paranoid about. Am I going to look drowned? Am I going to look like I'm rain-soaked? And the answer is no. Your professionals are there. Like, there was a moment where, actually it's documented in a photo, and I love having it. I go back and look at it, and it makes me laugh. At one point, when it did start to rain heavy, I had 5 people surrounding me. 3 of them had umbrellas, 1 of them had my train, 1 of them had my flowers, and everyone was making sure that I never got wet. And my hair and makeup never smudged. I never looked wet. And so I know that can be a fear, but don't let it be, because you're going to look gorgeous. And by the time you're dancing, you're sweating anyways. That happens. So just go with it and don't panic about that. Your vendors are there. You're going to look beautiful. You will not look rain-soaked.
Right. And so that's a great tip, because the other thing is, too, is if you do know that it's going to be raining on your wedding day, think about your own hair. Like, if you were planning on wearing it down and the hair gets a little bit frizzy in the rain, then maybe, like, alter your hair, like your hair. But again, like you said, your hair and makeup is not going to get ruined either. But with that said, another little like small tip I just kind of want to throw out there and share with you all, something that's pretty magical that only people that can do when it rains on their wedding day, is collect the rainwater.
Ooh.
So, yes.
Tell me more.
My 3 children get baptized with the rainwater from my wedding day.
You're kidding. Mm-hmm. Oh, my God, I just got chills. I've never heard of that before.
I'm sharing that little secret.
Oh, that just made my heart happy, too.
So if it rains, a friend of mine at my wedding didn't know she was doing this. She ran out with a cup, collected the rainwater. I jarred it up.
Oh, my God.
And we kept it as a keepsake. But then I was like, oh, I want to baptize my children with this water. So the priest blessed all 3. And I have the water. So it's like, hey, listen, you're going to save your dress for like one day when those people are going to wear it. Like, why not the rainwater?
Oh, my gosh. Sarah, I'm so glad you shared that, because that just makes me so happy, you know? And it's all about perspective, right? Like, life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Like, that's what you do. You make lemonade of it. You make the best of it. And it's funny now, like, I have friends that are like, oh, my gosh, like, out of all your photos, the umbrella ones are my favorite. Like, not that I wish it rained on my wedding day, but I wish I had photos like that. You know, and I think just kind of going back to photography for a minute, I was very blessed that on the day before my wedding, when we did the rehearsal and the welcome reception, it was sunny and beautiful. So I actually had a photographer that rearranged her day, and it was 2 days before the wedding, and she said, listen, I'll rearrange my Saturday. If there's any photo you want at your venue that we know we can't get on Sunday when it rains, she goes, I will come on Saturday and we'll get those photos that day. And I had her for 2 hours, and it was an added bonus that we weren't expecting. We got these bonus photos, and I got my Newport Bridge photos that I couldn't get on the wedding day, but I still was in my little wedding dress for the rehearsal day. So just know that that's another option. You know, if you know it's going to rain, or even if it's not going to rain, maybe consider having your photographer come a couple hours at your rehearsal and then be there for your wedding if it's possible. And, you know, I mean, Sarah, I'm sure you can speak to this even more, but, you know, my photographer said that, you know, if I would wanted, and I really had wanted to put my wedding dress back on, she had said, we'll put your flowers in water. Couple days later, you can have your hair and makeup done again if you want, or however you want, and we can go back out on a sunny day and we can get more photos if that's a non-negotiable for you. And it's not something I needed. You know, maybe I would go do a 1-year anniversary photo shoot and kind of maybe go back and get some of those photos. But I feel like we got the best of both worlds by getting the sunny rehearsal photos and the overcast rainy day. But there's options. Photographers will work with you.
Correct. And so that's a really great point. A lot of people don't realize that. Sometimes, like in your situation, that worked out great. Sometimes people's photographers are booked the next day or they're not available. Or maybe you don't have your rehearsal the night before, or maybe it's raining that day. There is other options. For me, I do what we call the dress session. That was, at one time it was called Trash Your Dress. But, people don't need to actually trash their dress. It's just an opportunity for someone to put their dress back on. And sometimes we do this because somebody decided to get married on a coastal area, and now they want city pictures. Or sometimes where they got married, they have city, but they want some beach pictures. Sometimes people got married in the winter and they want spring. Sometimes people use it because it did rain on their wedding day and they want some sunny ones. So there's options. Those are out there. So Amanda, there's something that we haven't talked about that I think it's really important for the listeners. I don't know if you took advantage of this or if you even knew about this, but wedding insurance.
Oh.
So, yes.
No, I have not heard of it.
Okay. So it's in my contract that I always suggest to all of our couples to do wedding insurance. This can go, and there is a such thing, guys, out there. So, and it's usually a very small cost. From the last time I looked on it, it was probably $400 or $500. You got to talk to your insurance company. Same thing for your home insurance, okay? Again, it's something that is not just because if it rains on your wedding day, you get wedding insurance. There's so many reasons. It could anything be from a cancellation because someone's sick. We're in the COVID years. I don't know if I bet you, don't quote me on this, but I won't be surprised if insurance companies wrote something where it's not covered by COVID, but whatever. The point is there is wedding insurance because it's the same thing with travel insurance, right? There's all these different things that can happen of why you need wedding insurance. What if there's a hurricane on your day, a state of an emergency where you got married? You cannot have that tent up if there's a certain amount of winds happening. And I know for myself, I shot a wedding there when we had a state of emergency. We had a hurricane coming the next day and they had to take down the tent. So therefore, they accommodated this particular couple by getting married hours earlier, but they also had wedding insurance. So if they didn't want to move forward with that plan, they could have gotten a good portion refunded. So there's all these reasons of why you can have wedding insurance. That's a whole other topic. And we don't have to talk about that today. But with that said, wedding insurance is something that's out there because not just rain on your day. There's so many things that can happen on your day that you don't even think about. I mean, I'm not trying to scare everybody who's listening, but we literally had a venue burn down because someone was smoking a cigarette and they burnt down the venue. It's a local venue that's over the border in Massachusetts, and now it's a beautiful venue because they got to rebuild.
Oh, wow.
So anything can happen. And there was a wedding going on that night, just FYI. So, I mean, for me, because it rained on my day, there was water that was trickling into the tent that hit a circuit breaker or an outlet. I didn't know this. Dan informed me because my buddy Dan, everybody knows Dan, he was there at my wedding. And obviously, like I said, there's things that probably go wrong on your wedding that you don't even know. I never knew this, but he told me the tent caught on fire. It was fine. Yeah. It was fine. But it just made me think of there's so many things that can happen that wedding insurance is a great thing to think about.
It's so funny that you say that because at our wedding, because it rained, we had a very unique situation in the sense that my husband is the lead singer in a band. So he and the band actually performed a set, and they kicked off the dancing portion of the reception, and then we transitioned into a DJ. And right in the middle of the band, everyone's up dancing, having a great time. Dance floor is packed. All of a sudden, a fuse blew. And it didn't impact the DJ circuit, but it impacted the bands. And all the lights stayed on, but nothing was working. And we all laughed. And the DJ, being the professional he is, just transitioned right into music until we could fix the problem quickly. And then we went back into the band. So it's true. Those things can happen. And I actually had never even heard of wedding insurance. So it's so interesting you bring that up, but that's an option.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you don't do wedding insurance for rain, but but when you were speaking about this, it was something that I thought of because we're talking about rain, but if you're getting married during the fall, late summer, early fall, in New England, there's hurricanes that happen.
Yeah.
So, it could happen on your day.
Mm-hmm.
There's also state of emergencies. I just talked about, certain wind locations. So that's just something just to give you that little, if you're a person, just that little extra sense of security. It's just something to look into. Just look into it, see what it covers, and just something to think about.
Yeah, that's a great tip.
All right, Amanda. Well, it's time for the wrap-up question. What are some key points that couples should be asking and thinking about to prepare themselves for non-ideal weather?
So definitely make sure you have a plan A and a plan B that you love. And I wouldn't take it any further than that. Don't have too many plans, a C, D, or E, that it gets stressful. Just keep it to an A and B that you love. Be flexible while also really staying true to what it is that you want that day. And again, going back to what I said about what can you be flexible with and what are your non-negotiables. Lean into your vendors. They're professionals for a reason. They've done rainy day weddings hundreds of times. Your venue's going to be a well-oiled machine. They're going to be ready for anything. So don't stress about that and just lean into your professionals. Really make sure that you take the time. If it is going to rain on your wedding week, take the time to process it that week before the wedding weekend even gets here. Take whatever that looks like. Make sure you accept it. Spring into action mode for any last-minute things you need to do to prepare, such as making sure you have a clear umbrella or a photography alternative plan if you need it. But make sure that you process and accept it so that you can be fully present on your wedding weekend. And a lot of people think that rain can be a damper on a wedding day, but I truly learned firsthand, and that's why I'm here today, that your wedding is still going to be a fairy tale. I was so concerned that people weren't going to notice all the details I thought through and all the signage, and the rain was going to overpower, and it didn't. It was our perfect fairy tale. It didn't change the outcome of the day. So just embrace it. It's your day. And, it sounds cliche, but when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Our wedding was the best possible lemonade, and perspective and attitude is everything.
Wow, Amanda. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this week's episode of Wedding Secrets Unveiled. You helped our listeners become one step closer to their journey of a stress-free wedding planning. What I'm going to do for our listeners is I'm going to have all of Amanda's information up on our show notes, which you can find on our blog on our website, which is at sarahzarella.com/podcast. That way you can see firsthand her beautiful images from her beautiful wedding, even though it rained. Mm-hmm. And I think I'll stick my picture up there with mud on my dress.
Oh, please do. Please do. I can't wait to see it. And truly, thank you so much for having me today.
I am just so happy that you wrote in, that you were a listener, and now you're sitting here. So just thank you for bringing some fabulous information for people who were you.
Yeah, exactly.
Months ago.
Yeah, and to everyone and all the brides out there, it's going to be your dream day, so just embrace it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for listening to Wedding Secrets Unveiled. I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, I want to tell you something. I encourage you to check out our website at sarahzarella.com. We love photographing while having fun, of course. Check out our podcast page on our website for our show notes along with upcoming episodes with your local wedding experts. Listen in as we help you plan your epic event. And don't forget that you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever you are listening so you never miss an episode. I would so appreciate if you left a review for us on Apple Podcasts. Even better, share it with a friend. It's a great way to show your support and let us know what you think. If you know any wedding experts that would like to be a guest, we have a link directly on our website where they can let us know. Thank you for listening.